Wake Up World Semifinals Day 2. Suning defeat Top Esports to advance into the World's Final. We're taking a look back at the best moments of Worlds and a look ahead at free agency. Plus, a breakdown of what to expect from the Grand Finals next weekend.
Bin for the knockup. Doug puts him away. Looks for the re-engage on the back line. They've shut down Jackie Love. Bin doing the heavy lifting. Can he do the rest? He puts the team into it. Knight flashes the way to the wrong side of the map. And the shockwave is not going to do it. Suning mounts the comeback. Knockups even more. Here comes a call over the top as well. Is it enough damage? Bin wants another. And Jackie Love drops yet again. They find kill 2. They will find kill 3. Suning will not be stopped. They will not be denied their vengeance from the regular season. Karsa drops. It's Karsa running away, but Knight is already gone, and this could be enough. Huanfeng tries to take down 369 and does so. Karsa is gone as well. That is the ace, and Suning have done the impossible. G2 in groups, JD Gaming in quarters, and TES in semi.
Day 19 of the World Championship is in the books, and we're here to break it all down. It's Wake Up Worlds. Welcome one, welcome all to Wake Up Worlds, our ESPN ESPORTS League of Legends World Championship program. He's Tyler, I'm Arda, and we thank you so much for joining us live on Twitch and YouTube. We are here with you every step of the way until a brand new World Championship is crowned.
We're there.
And now we're know.
There.
We know exactly who will be in the World Championship final on Halloween. On October 31st, it shall be decided. And Tyler, you said it before we went on the air, the perfect storyline. Though we have said that the 4 best teams could have possibly made the semifinal, or the strongest teams that we've seen in World's history, now we still have a David versus Goliath situation where Suning, the improbable team that have gone through all of the best Worlds has had to offer, and now they have saved the best for last as they face the mighty Damwon in an LPL versus LCK showdown. Doesn't that sound great, partner?
It sounds delectable. It sounds exciting. It sounds like it could be a 3-0, Arda. I'm kind of scared. I'm not gonna lie. I love the Suning story. The Suning story is amazing. They are the biggest underdogs possibly in world's history. You can discuss them around of TPA when they won the world title in 2012, beating Azubu Frost. This might be even a greater underdog story. They were 11th place in the spring split. Even coming into this tournament, no one really thought of them as a world finalist. Quarterfinalist, surely. Making quarterfinals, that was kind of their barrier. They were supposed to go to the quarterfinals and then fall out there, but then they got to, the bubble started. People started talking about how good Suning were in scrims, how fastly they were improving. And now we were left with the Suning team who is firing on all cylinders. This ultimate David versus the Goliath of Damwon Gaming, who beat G2 Esports, last year's finalists, in the quickest game in world's history. We can talk about how both teams have been very impressive, but it's still very clear. This is a David versus Goliath story. Suning are still the heavy underdogs. TES, yes, in the not looking at the context of it, yes, they were the number 1 Chinese seed. They were supposed to be a Goliath in their own right, but we saw them struggle heavily versus Fnac in the quarterfinals. We saw them lose to FlyQuest in the second week of the World's group stages. This was not a Goliath in the same sense of Damwon, who really haven't been challenged all tournament long. TES just weren't the better team on the day. Suning were far more flexible and a far better team. And now this leaves us in this situation where it's an amazing story. It's a story of so much backstory for Suning and how all these players have found on this team 4 rookies on the international stage. Sword Art, the last remnant of the LMS, beating his close friend Karsa to make it to the world final for the first time. And it feels so good. The story is like a Disney movie. It's the Mighty Ducks. It's Angels in the outfield. It's the Lions and Sumner's Rift, Arda. And I still can't shake it that we might. It feels like a 3-0. I don't, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing, Arda, that this feels like it could be a 3-0 in Damwon's favor, because in previous years, we've been like, oh, IG versus Fnatic, that'll be a fun series. G2 versus FPX, that's going to be a fun series. Those were all 3-0s. SKT versus Samsung in Beijing. This is going to be a close one. So maybe this David versus Goliath story, with all the twists and turns we've had, maybe we're ready for a banger of a final. Maybe this is the time that we'll get that 3-2 final where we have the magical ending of the underdog taking down the giant, Bin split pushing, Huanfeng playing his Jin, Angel on the Akali. Suning are not a team to be looked down upon, but make no mistake, Damwon are the favorites going to the final, and it is a David versus Goliath story. But man, you just want Suning. Like, even me, someone who's covered South Korean esports for over a decade, someone who's followed Damwon Gaming since they were an amateur team, you still, like, in your heart of hearts, you still kind of want to see the Disney movie come to a rightful end. You want to see the underdogs hoist the trophy. You want to see Sword Art win it for his best friend Karsa in the crowd. You want to see Bin, kind of ascend to the pantheon of top players. You want to see Huanfeng, finish off his amazing story. You want all these stories to end in a beautiful crescendo. But then you have Damwon, who've just, bludgeoned G2 Esports in the semifinals, who are looking at Suning and saying, this is our time. This is our tournament. We are taking the trophy back to South Korea.
Tons to unpack here. We're going to get to exactly how Suning got to this point in the first place. First thing I have to say, speaking of Disney movies, Mighty Ducks, excellent series. Let's just put that out there. Everyone will agree with that. Yeah. Only 10% of you picked Suning to defeat Top Esports in our ESPN League of Legends predictor. And so just a reminder, you can play for free, espn.com/League of Legends predictor. Click on the ESPN Fantasy app, the trophy tab of the fantasy app if you have it, also free. You can make your picks for the final. You can even start playing now if you want. Invite your friends, make some picks for the final, and get some bragging rights. Again, that's the ESPN predictor, esports predictor for Worlds, espn.com/League of Legends predictor. Some stats for you regarding Suning. With this victory, Suning became the third team in history to miss a playoff in at least one split and then make the World's final in the same year. Two other teams have done that, Tyler. Royal Club did it twice, 2013 and 2014. Samsung Galaxy did it in 2016. Those two teams have something in common, Tyler, and that is they did not win. They made it to the final. They didn't win. Suning, though it is a David and Goliath story, we will get to that a little bit later, they have the opportunity to make history and become the first team to actually win after missing a playoff in that same year. Now, let's talk about the series with Top Esports. What did you see from that series? Even if TES weren't coming into the series in their top form, like you said, the series against Fnatic, what was it about Suning's play and Suning's strategy that was able to overcome the day?
There were two things. And it's the textbook underdog anime Disney movie Mighty Ducks kind of playbook, Arda. It's the blueprint. You have to have two things. One, you have to have no fear. You cannot fear the opponent. You cannot fear the Goliath. You cannot fear the favorite. And that's exactly what Suning did with Huanfeng, flashing forward on Ezreal, playing aggressive versus Jackie Love, not afraid of a player who he played under in the IG Academy last year, a player that, we were talking about could be a top 5 player all time if he won this world championship. Regarded as one of the best players in the world, not showing any fear, showing no respect to a player of that caliber. And that was through the board, Arda. So that's the number one thing. You can't show fear in the face of a Goliath or a top team. And number two, as we all know, the flying V, all these trick plays, you got to have flexibility, Arda. You got to have flexibility. And in this series, TES was shown that they were not the flexible team. This is not a meta that they can thrive in. This is a meta that they try to work in. This was a meta that they came up short in, where we saw Karsa, kind of come into it in his Nidalee game versus Fnatic. They kind of band-aided over their holes. They had the weaknesses still there, but they were able to band-aid them through their just overall strength of a team. Karsa was able to step up. 369 was able to step up. But in this series, Suning were just the far smarter, more intelligent, more coordinated, and just, quite frankly, more flexible team, where they were able to play a variety of strategies And Bin in the top lane had a field day versus 369. 369, who was the hero of the day in the last series for TES, just wasn't there today. And there's always that meme of he rolls a 3, he rolls a 6, does he roll a 9? Does he roll a 9 and win the game, or does he roll a 3 and lose everything? And today he rolled a 3, and Bin was just rolling straight 10s. And just overall, no fear in the flexibility, and TS just wasn't able to keep up with them, and they weren't able to disrupt SOFM enough in the jungle, and he had a field day as well. So when that top side of the map, Bin and SOFM can feel comfortable, it's very hard to beat Suning in this meta.
On the other side, then, TES, we were chatting up Knight like he was essentially the greatest player in the world, right?
That's
Faker. He's Faker,
yeah.
right? So now that we look back at TES and what happened in particular in this series, was he a victim of the meta? Did he just not show up at Worlds? What do you credit this falling to?
So let's get this straight. Knight is still an amazing player. He's a world-class player. He is still a top 5 in the world player. You can even argue he's still number 1. But the comparisons to Faker are over. Even comparing him to Rookie, right now it's over. Even in metas where Faker was not supposed to be to excel in, he excelled in. He's played in numerous world championships, numerous metas that were thrust upon him in the last seconds because Riot decided to make a major change right before the world championship, and he still excelled in those. Knight had maybe one of the worst Orianna games I've ever seen in the international stage in the last game, sombreroing the last gap team fight. Even though TS by that point was pretty much already done, but that was the moment you expect, a number 1 player in the world, a world-class player, a player that we're talking about maybe being one of a generational talent to come through, and he just didn't. And I think for the first world championship, if I had to give Knight a rating overall, I think it was 7. I think overall he was decent. He didn't embarrass himself. He didn't come in like Name from season 4, where Name had all the hype in the world as the next Uzi, the next great 80 carry, this EDG ace, and then he fell on his face, and from there he's become sort of a meme. I don't think Knight became a meme. I don't think people are going to look down on Knight, but I think you have to have more reservations about what kind of player he really can be. I think he is an MVP. He's one of the best players in the world, but you really can't compare him to Faker anymore. Faker came to his first tournament and won that world championship. Knight can't do that now. I'm sure Knight will come back hungrier. He'll come back better. But for an overall first tournament, he had a lot of good games, but very few great games. And that's why I give him a 7 out of 10. A respectable performance. I don't think his team rallied around him. You would really have hoped that Jackie Love would have had a better world championship in the playoff stage. You really would have wished that 369 had a better performance in the semifinals. But if you're going to be the number 1 player in the world, if you're going to be that guy, you're going to be the ace of aces, you're going to have to pick up your team when everything is falling down, as Faker's done before, how Rookie has done before, as Uzi's done it before. If you want to be a top 5 player all the time, if you want to dream of that kind of pantheon status, you're going to have to bring up your team when everything is falling down, and Knight couldn't do that this tournament. And still follow the zone. He's still a very young player, but it still kind of shows the gap between him and the legends. He did not become a legend this tournament, but he's still a superstar.
So as we get to our player ratings, actually, so it's a 7 out of 10 for Tyler for the entire tournament. Here are our player ratings for this series in particular. I'll start as we go to Suning here. I had a bunch of 10s to give out. Statistically, Bin and Angel were lights out in this series. Bin led the way in KDA with an 8.3 and led the way in kills with Huanfeng with 15. Definitely statistically superior, especially to their lane counterparts or role counterparts. Angel in the mix there as well. And SofM, I mean, my goodness, right? Like, he just had an amazing series. Now, the style, he put the style in style of me, right? Like, he was definitely there and present and really made people notice with his play. So those are mine for Suning. How about for you?
For Suning, I gave Bin a 10, SofM a 10, Angel a 9, Huanfeng an 8, and Swordar an 8. The great thing about Suning here, and the thing that they can kind of breathe and kind of be like kind of excited over, is that I don't think all 5 players had their best days. I think the bomb lane, especially Huanfeng, had a very good day, but he did not have the similar day that he had in the quarterfinals. But the positive thing about that is that when he wasn't having that 10 out of 10 day versus the Goliath of TES, you had the top side of the map of SOFM and been playing out of their minds. And in game 4, when the most overlooked player, the most least talked about player, I think we've maybe mentioned his name 3 times in the last 23 shows, Arda, Angel, the unsung hero of Suning, a very good player in his own right, picked out a Kali, a champion that is meant to carry. And if you don't carry, you look like a fool running around in your shroud, basically a paperweight. And he pulled through and was absolutely amazing in game 4, the MVP of that game. And if Suning wants any chance of all of upsetting Damwon Gaming in the final and putting a stamp on this Disney movie and getting their rights sold, so Steven Spielberg of the Lion story, Angel's gonna need to be a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 on that day. He's gonna have to play the same level or even better versus Showmaker, because while Knight's having a 7 out of 10 tournament overall, Showmaker's at a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10. And after we saw him shut down and neutralize and cage Caps last game, Showmaker's going to have a lot of confidence going against Angel. So Angel is my player to watch in the final. If he can be a standout, if he can stand up to Showmaker and neutralize him, then that's a series. And that could be the way that Suning wins the game through the top side of the map or the bottom side of the map.
So let's take a look at TES to tie a bow on their Worlds tenure here. Their player ratings, according to you, in this series?
My ratings are 369. He rolled a 3. Karsa 4. Karsa tried really hard. Karsa had a few moments where he went too far under towers, but overall he tried really, really hard and had some marquee moments that kind of kept them alive in the series. Knight of 4 again had some, his Echo game in particular. He got off to a really hot start. In a few times this tournament, he's got to a 3 and 4 star or 4 kills in the first 15 minutes. He has not been able to kind of snowball that into a victory, which we've seen so often in the LPL. And I think overall, again, a decent day in a 3-1 loss. You have to say a 4 out of 10. Jackie Love a 3, Karsa a 4, Yulianja a 2. Overall just a really rough day for TS. And I think the biggest person who gets here is not Knight. I think Knight's legacy is still to be written. It's first world championship. I think the person who's had his legacy hit the most from this tournament, especially these last 2 rounds, is Jackie Love, where we sat here and we said Jackie Love has made the top 4 in his first 3 seasons as a pro. He's on the echelon of a top 5 player all time if he can win this world championship. Joining Duke as the only player to win the Summoners Cup on 2 different teams, the first player to do that as a starter. And he just had 2 really bad series in a row. And I said this, I'm like, there's no way Jackie Love can have another bad day after that first bad day. He's not going to int again. He's not going to, int to his doom. He's not going to be that bad. He's not going to frontline his face and just die over and over again. And he had another bad day. And this a rough day all around. And usually when TS has one of their star players falter, one of them steps up. And it just seemed like today that it was like whack-a-mole. Every time one of the players of TS, one of the stars tried to make a big move, Suning was there to just shut them down. So all props to Suning. Sure, TS didn't play their best, but this is a meta where I don't think TS really ever felt comfortable in. And I think Suning knew what they had to do. They were flexible, they were adaptable, and they just beat down the LPL champions.
So while Jackie Love's legacy, it remains to be seen where it goes from here, because of course he has had success in the past and that is still being written. When we look at positives in terms of legacies being built and created, of course you're going to look at Suning as they make a Worlds final, but 2 names in particular definitely stand out. Ones that we've spoken about at length on this program, Tyler, is Huanfeng and SofM. And they are definitely leveling up in their careers, in visibility, in just overall play, and people speaking about them and a spotlight being shined on both of them. So why don't we just talk about them both and the legacies that they're building through the play that they're able to exhibit at Worlds this year?
I mean, for Huanfeng, it's kind of simple. Again, just a marvelous story. As someone who grew up in poverty and grew up in a broken home, it really is just like really. It's admiring of what Huanfeng's doing. As someone who grew up without parents, and someone who grew up with not a lot of money in his household growing up, seeing his drive to be this good in this kind of area, it makes me want to be a better writer, Arda. It makes me want to be a better, commentator and personality. It makes me want to wake up every day and just do better and do more, because Huanfeng is writing his own tale, and he's doing it on the biggest stage possible. And for him, I think obviously his story is amazing, but I think that story gets him up to a point. It gets him to the final. I think now it's his own story. It's not about the past anymore. It's about the present and future. And regardless of where he came from, if it was, silver spoon in a palace, or if he came from a broken home like me and him, it doesn't matter anymore. It's him trying to create his own legacy as one of the best AD carries in the world, and to become the next generation of superstar. If Uzi retired and now he's being Jackie Love, it opens the door for him to win a world title, tie Jackie Love, and say, I was under you last year, Jackie Love. I watched you. I learned from you, and I'm going to become better than you. So for Huanfeng, an amazing backstory, but now it's all about the present and future. And if he can get that W over Damwon, his stock rises so much, and he becomes one of the faces of the LPL for the foreseeable future. And for SOM, man, what a story. Vietnam is a fanatical fan base. I've been to Vietnam. I love the people. I love the fans. I love the passion they bring with every event they have. They had over 500,000 people in the Vietnamese stream today, Arda, on YouTube. 500,000 plus watching SOFM play in the semifinals, because those Vietnamese teams were not able to come to Worlds 2020. One of the fastest growing region in the world infrastructure of the League of Legends is Vietnam. They were not able to send two of their teams. They were able to send one player on an LPL team, SOFM, the lone star of Vietnam. And you know what he did, Arda? He made it to the final. One player, one final. He is carrying a nation on his back. And he is not just doing it as a role player. He is doing it as the ace of the team. And in a meta where jugglers have to come up big or go home, he is staying right here, and he's going to Pudong Stadium on October 31st to take home the Summoners Cup. It's just the entire team is littered with these stories, these amazing stories of just coming up big when you need to. And they are the underdogs. They are the Mighty Ducks. They are, whatever anime, team you want to bring them up as. They are the underdog team. And the thing about them is that they're going to go into the final, and I truly believe they will go in with no fear. They might lose. They might get 3-0 for all we know, but I think they're going to be flexible. They're going to take chances. They're going to experiment, and they're going to go big. They'll bring out the River Shen. They'll bring out new picks. They'll bring out strange things, and they will do everything in their arsenal to take down the Goliath and Damwon. They have their slingshot ready. They have their weapons prepared, and Damwon is going to have to play their best if they want to take home the Summoners Cup.
Incredible stories indeed. And of course, highlights don't hurt when you are talking about players and putting them on a pedestal or shining a spotlight on them. And that's exactly what Huanfeng had in the quarterfinals. This is one that you'll be talking about for years to come. And even the casters, as it happened, said, I have never, ever seen anything like this.
Amazing.
Take us through this moment, Tyler, and just its significance and how on earth it could have even happened. The Jin ult in the base, turret still up. Huanfeng pulls off a beauty.
It's hard. Art. I don't want to be that nerd. But to echo the words of Ashley Kong on Twitter, how much more anime could this tournament be? This is the most anime setup of all time, where you have the young hero popping in the enemy base, free firing in the most awkward, random, surprising place you could be as in a mobile Jin, putting on a virtuoso performance at the world stage. Huanfeng, this is your time. This is your moment. Ghost versus Huanfeng, man. I did not think this would be our World Finals bottom lane matchup, and both players are playing at their peak of their powers. Both players, it's going to be, the final has so many good storylines, artists. So many good storylines.
And there's the, you can see the highlight right now, right in the base. The turrets are still up, pulls off the ult, and one of what will live on to be one of the great highlights in World's history. and put on by somebody who you may not have expected to pull off a highlight like that. Someone who's continuously building his name in not only League of Legends, but on the biggest stage is Huanfeng. So that's going to be a story that we're going to talk about for a very long time. And of course, we will have one more show after this, and it will be on the day of the final of the 2020 World Championship, and that's on Halloween, October 31st.
Ooh,
The spookiness, here it comes.
Ghosts. It had to be. Ghost had to make the. I mean, his name was Ghost. It just kind of was. It was kind of like foreseeing the stars that Halloween night there would have to be a player king Ghost playing in the finals.
Actually, our producer Daniel J. Collette told me there's 2 more shows. I apologize. I misspoke. We actually have a show before the finals and one after the finals. So there you go. A bonus content. Let's go.
Super size wake up world. A nighttime world.
That's right.
We did it. A wake up in the midday worlds. A very, very late worlds and a very, very early world. It's gonna be a very fun day. It's gonna be a marathon of a day, Arda. The David versus Goliath showdown.
No matter what, I'm gonna need coffee. So either way, I'm be drinking a bunch of it. Let's talk about what will happen after Worlds, and that, of course, is free agency. We haven't waited at all, Tyler. Like, there's no waiting.
The teams aren't waiting. The teams aren't waiting. If the teams aren't going to wait, if the teams are going to be calling and talking through the grapevines, and agents are going to be like, going to teams saying, hey, you interested? You interested? I don't think we have to wait. If the teams aren't waiting, if the agents aren't waiting, if the players aren't waiting, it's time to talk about it, Ari. It's time to talk.
And we have a lot to talk about already. I mean, the landscape is already changing drastically. This could be one of the busiest free agency seasons in League of Legends history. I know there was like the South Korean exodus, and that's one of the biggest moments ever, right?
Maybe this will be number 2. This could be number 2, Arda.
This definitely is already projecting to be number 2, just because of the sheer volume of big time changes that we're already hearing, and we're not even close to free agency yet. We're inching towards it, but we're not close to the date. It's middle of November. We still have the world's final to deal with, and already we're hearing so many giant pieces
lots of buyouts, it's not even free agency order, it's buyouts. It's people trying to buy players who are under contract. Like, we've come to a point now in League of Legends where being a free agent really doesn't matter. It really does come down to if a team is willing to buy out a contract. And as we've seen with Vulcan of C9, big teams are willing to. And in this kind of bookending of the generation of Western League of Legends, I think we're going to a new chapter in 2021. And that means a lot of shuffling. That means a lot of big name players maybe moving. Obviously, Bjergsen, TSM. We're going to get into what we think is going to happen. So, Arda, shoot me off some names, and I will give you my crystal ball prediction of where I think they might land. I'll give you some percentages.
All right, Chovy.
Ooh, Chovy. Ah, man. Again, these are all percentages. These are all just based off what I'm feeling, what I'm hearing. Nothing concrete. Let's make this sure. Nothing is concrete. There is nothing signed. Nothing can be signed until November 16th when free agency.
Just your opinion, right? Your opinion.
My opinion. I just want to make sure before they clip it and ship it, artist. So Chovy, I will say 60% LPL.
Okay.
30% LCK. 10% LCS. And I would say a week ago, I was at like a 2% LCS.
Yeah, so I was going to say, last time we talked about this, that percentage went up 5-fold.
Yeah.
Why the increase? Why do you feel like there's a little bit more optimism for Chovy LCS now?
Bit of chatter that,
Okay.
Maybe some teams are, interested in the Chovy. You've
sipped on some tea. You've heard a couple things. Okay.
I heard a few things. I still think the most logical ending here is that he does sign with a big LPL team. He gets the bag. He gets $2+ million, probably upwards of $3 to $4 million a year from an LPL team. But there's an outside shot of an LCS team getting him. There's a lot of shuffling around the mid lane in the LCS, it seems. Chovy might be a big fish that one of these teams wants to grab if they can get him, and if COVID willing, get him over. But it does seem like a few teams are willing to take the spring split as okay, if he's not here for a few months, we can survive that. So I think my opinion of him going up to the LCS has risen, especially of how crazy it seems like it's going to get in the Western scene. But I'm still pretty sure it will be the LPL or LCK. more than likely, I think an LPL team will come out of nowhere and offer him that big $3+ million bag.
2 questions. When it's all said and done, will it be, and whether he accepts it or not, will it be an LCS team that will offer him the most money?
That's what happened last year. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
So,
that happened last
it's quite
year.
possible. It's quite possible that
quite
whether,
possible.
and I'm not saying whether Chovy or not will accept it. I'm just hypothesizing on which region will offer him the most money when it's all said and done. So it's quite possible that the LCS will do that.
Could be LCS. I still think it'll be. I think it'll be LPL though. I think it'll be LPL.
That'll offer more money, or one team will offer more money when it's all said and done. Okay.
Yes, I think it'll be LPL. Yeah.
So then my next question to you is, if you were to guess how much money matters to him at this point in his career versus playing in a region that he'll win more in, what percentage is that? Like, how much does the bag matter?
Best of both worlds. LPL, baby. LPL, baby. You get both. Win worlds and get a big bag. Like,
I guess let me give a hypothetical scenario. Let's say an LPL team offers him $3 million versus LCS offering him $5 or $6 million. Like, I guess I'm wondering, is there a point where Chovy will be like, no, this is enough money. I want to stay in a winning region, or will he be like, wow, $6 to $7 million or whatever it is? I'm just I don't know anything. I don't hear the same things. I'm just guessing based on what's been out there publicly. If they're offering that kind of money, like, is there a point where Chovy, I don't know Chovy either. Will there be a point where Chovy thinks about this and is like, I can't turn this down. This is amazing money.
Well, here's what we know. Last year, EG offered a multi-million-dollar deal, upwards of $3 to $4 million plus. DRX offered $1 million per year, so it's a $3 to $4 million difference between the two deals. Chovy said, "I'm going to stick with DRX and my mentor, Mr. CV Max. I'm going to sign a 1-year deal. I'm going to try to win a world title with DRX, and then I will test the waters next year, and then I'll get the bag." So I think he's more. I don't think he will take another $1 million deal. I don't think he's going to undersell himself again. But I think when it comes to a $3 million deal versus a $5 million per year deal, I think that would become the discussing point of, like, I think he would take less money, the $3 million deal, if he feels he has a better chance to win worlds. So I think that's why, in the end, I think he'll get his cake and eat it too. I think he will get a $3+ million deal in China from a team. Don't know who, but I do think there is owners willing to spend that money for Chovy and to pair him up maybe with Kanavi. But I do think it will be Chovy on an LPL team, unless he really wants to stay in Korea, or if a team really ups their pay. If we get a $2 million deal in Korea or a $2.5 million deal in Korea, maybe that changes things.
Couple of things here. Shirius in our chat, who's regularly a part of our chat, we really appreciate it, brought up 2 good points that I'd like to ask your opinion on. Number one, the LCK will be franchising next year. I'm wondering, what do you think that will do to salaries in the LCK?
They might go up. I would assume they go up with more interest. I mean, they had to invest, I believe upwards of $5+ million to get into the league. So I think teams are more ready to spend. But I also think that a lot of teams are looking towards their academy system. And I think a lot of South Korean teams believe that the next man up system works, where sure, Chovy for $3 million would be awesome, but there's also so many young mid laners in the South Korean pipeline right now that maybe a unknown player for $50K or $75K a year, and maybe who could become a Chovy with some seasoning, is a better deal than a $3 million contract over the next 3 to 4 years in Chovy. So I think the prices will go up. I don't know if teams are going to be willing to spend that much money unless they feel like that player is going to be their franchise player for the next 5 years, like a ruler with Genji or a faker with SKT or T1. Sorry, Joe.
That's okay. The second thing is that apparently, and Shears brought this to our attention, there might be a soft salary cap in the LPL next season.
Oh, yeah.
And this was mentioned apparently at a Tencent Esports annual conference. So apparently it's a soft salary cap with a baseline of approximately $1.5 million per team, but it will be a luxury tax format. So it's not a hard salary cap where you cannot exceed this and then you get penalized. It's more, you will have to pay a tax, a luxury tax, so to speak, if you exceed that. Now, do you think that will dissuade the top teams, or do you think that they'll say, nope, we're going to, we'll be fine paying the tax if we have to win? What do you think?
At
first glance.
I would have to, this would have to come into fruition and officially become a thing. I'm sure some of the owners are going to be fighting against this, especially the top owners who are paying $2 million already for single players on some teams. I think it could dissuade them, and I think that would up the LCS chances from like a 10% to like a 25%. But I still think, end of the day, LPL is where he'll end up unless he either really wants to stay on DRX or if he really wants to play under CV Max, or he just, an LCS team just blows him away and he feels like, this is an opportunity I cannot turn down.
Let's give you some more names and you tell me what the probabilities are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked about Chovy. Second name is Rekkles.
80%. Let's see. This is again 70% LEC. No, 75%. 80% LEC. 80% LEC. Most likely Fnatic if he sells in the LEC. You ready for this, Arda? The 20%?
Mm-hmm.
LPL.
LPL.
Huh. I've heard a few things of maybe some LPL teams looking at Rekkles. Rekkles has been on the record saying he wants to end his career in China. He loves China. The fans love Rekkles. He wants to play in the LPL at the end of his days. He's gone to back-to-back, he's been to a World Finals in 2018, now back-to-back quarterfinals. He's a free agent now. LPL is going to be looking at him. There's so many teams. He is obviously a player that was one of the best AD carries at the entire tournament this year. He is still in peak form. He still looks like one of the best AD carries in the world. I think LPL could happen. If I had to put money on it, I would say he's staying with Fnatic. They will find a deal to make their franchise player stay. He'll either that or he'll stay on the LEC on another top team. But I don't think LPL is out of the question. I do not think it's out of the question. There's rumblings. There's already been a precedent of him saying he would want to go there to end his career. He wants to play in the LPL one day. And what better chance to do so than right now, when he feels like he's a barrier of quarterfinals, where he's kind of stuck in this kind of stagnation of just going to top 8 every year, not making it back to the finals, moving over to an LPL team, changing it up. I think it could happen.
What is the history of Western players in the LPL?
0.
That would be unprecedented.
He'd be the first European player. There's been talks before of like Forgiven going to the LPL or the LCK. There's been times where it's been brought up, even like Rekkles before going to the LPL or but it would be, I believe, if I'm mistaken, I don't believe so, it would be the first time a Western player would start for a LPL franchise. And I'm not saying it's the most likely option, but I think it's definitely an option on the table, Arda.
Okay, that's interesting. That would be a really cool storyline if that were to happen.
It would be really fun. He'd make so much money and get so much ad deals. Like, oh my God, he'd be in like 12 McDonald's commercials. He'd be in a GQ commercial. Like, Rekkles would live his best life in China.
Let's give you some more names. And thank you for everyone. Furkar Denete just hosted us or just rated us. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for that. And for those of you that are just joining us, this is our daily ESPN Esports League of Legends World Championship program. We've been on the air all month. You may have seen Rift Rewind, our weekly ESPN Esports League of Legends program. We are now covering Worlds, and we will be on the air and on Halloween, October 31st, for the grand final between Suning and Damwon Gaming. We will give you a preview of that in a little bit, but right now we're talking free agency. There's been so much news that has come out already. Bjergsen has retired from TSM. He's moving on to a coaching role.
Don't bring it up again.
That was like 7/10 of Tyler's actual genuine reaction, which you can find on his Twitter account at FionOnFire, by the way, for his genuine reaction when he heard for the first time live on this show yesterday that Bjergsen was retiring. It was insane. We just and of course we've talked a lot about free agency, but it's already insane what's happening. And I'm throwing out some names to Tyler. We've talked Chovy, we've talked Rekkles. Let me throw out a few more names for you, Tyler. How about Jensen?
Jensen, I would probably say like 99% North America, maybe a 1% chance he goes back to Europe. I don't think so. I think he's found a home in North America. I think he's happy here. I think he has enough. He is a resident here. He has enough sway and enough respect. I think a lot of the owners see him as the best mid laner in North America. Even before Bjergsen retired, I think a lot of people ranked him number one. So I think he has a lot of sway when it comes to what team he wants around him. I mean, we've heard rumors. Travis Gafford brought up that he wants Santorin on his team. Again, I don't believe Santorin is even able to talk to Team Liquid or anyone of the sorts before free agency. So who knows how that's going to go down. But the rumors are there that he wants Santorin, he wants Alfari, he wants his European boys around him. And if I had to put a prediction on, is he going to get that? Is he going to get his, Santorin, Alfari, topside, and then stay intact that amazing possible world class bottom lane of Tactical and Core JJ, who's still one of the best supports in the world? I would say that's the most likely option. I think Steve has shown that he backs his players with money. If his players perform at a high level and they show they're worth the money, he will spend that money for them and around them. And I think with this free agency, Jensen's going to probably be asking for upwards of 1.5 million per year, which I think that's worth for him, especially in this climate. I think Jensen will get his deal. I think he'll stay on Team Liquid, and I think if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say he gets his Alfari and Santorin topside, and we get a Alfari, Santorin, Jensen, and then bottom lane of Tactical and Core JJ. And that team altogether, I mean, on paper, that team is sick, Arda. That is a very, very scary team. And this is coming from someone who's loved Alfari all year long, who said he's the best Western top laner. If that all came to be, I'd be very excited. Still a long way to go. Lots of teams want Alfari. Lots of teams want Santorin. Lots of teams want Jensen. So lots to go, but I would say most likely 99% he stays in NA. Probably like 80% he stays on Team Liquid unless, something crazy wows him, like a TSM deal comes out of nowhere or something, major happens.
One of the teams that I will be most fascinated with on how they decide to navigate free agency is G2. I feel like this team could stay the same, or I feel like this team could completely change. Yeah, this is fascinating. Like, exactly. There's so many options, and it's such an interesting position for G2 because they are, as they've proven time and time again, the best team in the LEC, but they just can't get it done internationally. And they all feel they can.
Yeah. If Carlos goes to the open market and says, okay, I'm gonna keep Perks to come back to mid lane, $3 million for a buyout of caps. You think there will be any people wanting you think he would find suitors for a $3 million plus buyout? He could probably ask for a bigger buyout of $3 million and get that for caps in his current deal until I believe 2022. So, and then with the money for that, you could get an upset or another top 80 carry.
If you're looking at if I'm Carlos right now, if I'm the business side, the executives of G2, and if I'm looking at, and I'm not saying this is how they are, I'm just giving you an objective view here. If I'm looking at my players as commodities, as stocks, right now, their value is high. Yes, because they have had a history of success, and G2 has an aura of success about it based on the last several years of performance and results. And so you're absolutely right, Tyler. You can absolutely sell these players for more than you bought them and turn a profit.
Oh, far more.
Absolutely. Now, whether they can find a similar winning team, that is a question. Now, the free agency market is really good such that maybe they would be able to create a G2 2.0, so to speak, and make a very competitive team. But going back to that point, especially Caps, Perks and Caps are the two that I'm really wondering what happens. Does Perks even stick around? He's been playing for a long time. He's been G2 bleeding that brand for such a long time. Does he just, I've talked to Carlos, Tyler, and he said, you know what, as soon as Perks is done, he can have an executive job for the rest of his life. I don't know if he has equity. We don't know that publicly, but he's basically Bjergsen and Faker for G2, right? In that same mold.
He's the franchise. He's the franchise. It's a really awkward situation. It's an awkward situation, but it's a situation that it's a win-win for Carlos either way, and for the players. If Perks wants to retire and go into a business role, he can do that. He can go the Bjergsen route, become a coach, whatever he wants to do. Become Grabs' assistant. Become head chef of G2. He could be whatever he wants. He'd be the head scientist of G2 Esports. I think Carlos would give him that role if he really wanted it. So if Perks wants to retire, or if he wants the mid lane role back, I think that's the most interesting thing. I think they stay the course. I think they keep the same 5. If Perks says, I'm okay being AD carry, I want to be AD carry, I like this role, I like this team, I'm motivated to play more at this role with this team. I think if he says that, he's the captain, I think they go with the ship. But if he says, I want to retire, I want to have a sabbatical, I want to take a year off, I'm burned out, then that you look for maybe an upset in the AD carry role. If Perk says, I want to be the mid laner again, I want to stay on this team, but I want to be the mid laner, then that's where Carlos has where it becomes very interesting, where Carlos is like, all right, who do I sell? Do I sell my son Perks, or do I sell the best Western player of all time in Caps, who's at his peak? That becomes, a very difficult choice then, where it'd be electrifying television if if that actually happened, where Perks is like, I want to be mid, Caps is like, I want to be mid. Carlos would probably be like a LeBron James here and just be like, I'm gonna just broadcast my decision on Twitch, and he'll get
thinking that
he'll get like 300,000 viewers and be like, which one am I trading? Which one am I keeping? Where am I trading them to? And he could monopolize the free agency market like that. He would destroy our show in a single shot, Arda. I actually shouldn't be even saying this, because Carlos is going to hear this and be like, maybe I could do that. And then at the end of it, he's just be like, I'm keeping both players. Screw you all. And then he just turns off the camera. So for G2 is going to be vastly interesting to see what happens. If I put money on it I still think it's going to be the same 5. I think they'll run it back, or Perks takes sabbatical / retirement and they replace him with a Rekkles or upset. But for right now, I think they're going to stay the course. But spiciness could happen. I think there's like a 25% of spiciness.
Spiciness is absolutely going to happen during free agency as a whole, and we will have complete coverage top to bottom. We do have a show in the works. Follow us on Twitter, ESPN _esports. You may or may not have some Fion bombs, definitely some Wolf bombs. It's going to be a ton of fun. So we will have more details in the coming days and weeks, but of course, all of our written content as well leading into free agency and full coverage will also be available at espn.com/esports. Before we get out of here, on the final week of Worlds with one game to go, let's give a little bit of a quick preview. The Worlds final is set. David versus Goliath. Suning taking on Damwon. You have a fantastic story on both sides. We finally come to this, Tyler. Give us a preview. Suning taking on Damwon in the final.
It's very simple. It's gods versus underdogs, Arda. For Damwon Gaming, what's on the line? Glory, Pantheon status, legacy. They had statistically the greatest LCK season of all time, tied with summer 2015 SK Telecom T1, who also went on to win the World Championship. If Damwon comes into Pudong Stadium and does what they exhibited against DRX and G2 and execute in that fashion, they will go down as one of the top 3 teams of all time, alongside Samsung White 2014 and SKT 2015. And the discussion will then begin, which of those 3 teams is the GOAT? And that will be the discussion. And regardless if they're number 1 or if they're number 3, they will reach that Pantheon status if they go into Pudong Stadium and they take care of business and they dominate Suning and they take down the underdog. For Suning, it's play of house money, baby. No one thought you were going to be here. The little old 3rd seed from LPL. Number 11 in the spring split. Number 4 in the summer. Battered by the big teams throughout the entire course of the 2020 season. TES had your number the entire year. Then come the World Championships, you turn it around. You upset G2 in the group stage. You make it out as the number 1 seed. You meet your brethren, JD Gaming, the macro maestros, the wine-sipping, brilliant, brainy team of the Chinese scene, and you take them down. In the semifinals, you face the gods of China, the superpowered team, the great, maybe top 3 AD carry of all time in China, Jackie Love. You face the number 1 player on almost every single top 20 list there was in Night. You play 3-6-9, one of the fastest rising top players in the world, and you not only beat them, you make them bleed, and you decimate them 3-1. It isn't even close by the final score. It is a series where they are playing with house money, And if they lose, they get 3-0'd. It's no skin off their back. They are still legends in their own right, and they made a name for themselves on the biggest stage possible. Their fandom in China will only grow, win or lose, but they have a chance to take down a Goliath, Arda. And not many times in these type of situations do an underdog gets a chance to take down what could possibly be an all-time team. And the question is, on October 31st, what kind of rock does Suning have to sling back and fire at the Goliath, the giant Damwon Gaming, and can they knock them out before they reach Pantheon status as one of the greatest teams of all time? Damwon's looking for all-time glory, and Suning is looking to be the greatest underdog story in world's history. One of those will possibly happen on October 31st, and I cannot damn wait. It's going to be a barn burner.
You and I both, partner, and neither can the 6,000 plus that will be inside Pudong Stadium in China, the very first event to happen in that newly built building. And
KDA!
KDA is going to be, yeah, you're going to have a great performances too, and maybe some more surprises. I can't wait to see what Riot has in store for the opening ceremonies and the presentation. It's going to be fantastic. Speaking of presentations, we're going to be here too. So follow us on Twitter, ESPN_esports, for more scheduling information on when the next edition of Wake Up Worlds will be, because so long as Worlds is happening, we are here with you. So enjoy the week off from Worlds competition, but then we will be back at some point around October 31st to get you set for the World's 2020 Grand Final. It's Suning, it's Damwon, but for now, enjoy the rest, and we'll see you very soon. Let's go.
Do gods bleed, Arda. Do gods bleed.